just like seeing her for the first time.
Soon they woke away from the monsters and found themselves at the entrance to the cave. Gia caught her breath and wiped the sweat from her face, saying that they survived, and then thought, where are they? Did they break away from the goblins? She remembered thought when they were running through the forest, and she turned around. She had a feeling that they would no longer be able to reach them. Is there really something here? So much happened that she can't even understand. She looked at her partner who was shining a flashlight Tinto, the cave, and mentally exclaimed, why is he so calm? They need to get out of here. Quickly she smiled awkwardly and said that she was done for the day. She would pay the compensation she had mentioned, he replied. That they couldn't leave, yet they were worried, so they would be around for a while, so it was dangerous to leave. Now it seemed like they had dropped a flare while running, so they had no choice but to wait for the goblins to leave, she exclaimed. When can they leave? Then he turned to her and replied that it might take half a day, but depending on the situation, it might take longer. Hearing this, she shuddered, and then grabbed her head and exclaimed, half a day? Deciding that they were Donifer, she sank to her knees in despair, and he scratched the back of his head, thinking that of course, he was lying. They'll be gone in about minutes, and their concentration isn't that good. It's a pathetic reason, but at this point, it seems like G will believe anything. He looked at the cave entrance again, and thought that it was because he needed to force her to come into the cave with him. As he thought about it, he closed his eyes and crossed his arms over his chest and then imagined her running away from the cave in fear and thought that he doubted she would agree. Suddenly his doubts were interrupted by G's guilty voice. She stood up and bowed to him, asking for his forgiveness. This is all because of her. If she knew how to fight, if she had gone alone in the first place, none of this would have happened. She was very sorry that this happened. She nervously clutched her weapon in her hands and thought that she had caused trouble again. Even in a drank dungeon, she was acting like this. She was hopeless. She shouldn't have. Even Creed started crying and clenched her teeth, telling herself that she shouldn't have come here. Junio reached out his hand to her and snapped his fingers in front of her face, distracting her from those thoughts, and told her that if she felt sorry, then let her do one thing for him, and let her pull herself together. Hesitantly asked what kind of request. He turned to the cave and said that they had plenty of time, then looked at her with a smile, and added that he would explain everything in detail after that. They entered the cave together and began to move forward, lighting their way with a flashlight. Ya hesitantly asked if he really needed her help. She wasn't erring, but she didn't have that much experience in dungeons, and she didn't even understand what he meant by analyte monster. He smiled, remembering that she said that it was her first time in the training gate, and said that now he understood why she didn't know. It's not very common information. Instead of bosses in the dungeon, there is an elite monster of a lower rank, and it lives in this cave for personal reasons. He needs to defeat this monster, but until now, he was rejected, and he could not even fight it. That's why she was the first to accept him as support into the team. Hearing this, she flinched and remained silent, and he glanced at her and thought, did that sound awkward? Gathering her determination, she pursed her lips and then stopped and confidently said that she would help him if he did not mind remembering the goblins in the forest. She thought that helping him was the right decision. Thanks to him she was saved, and she also knows how painful it is when you are not taken into the team. She must help him. Suddenly, her bracelet beeped, and at that moment, someone's loud footstep was heard. She became nervous, and MC shone the light forward. A huge goblin with a club in his hand appeared in front of them. It was the elite monster. Ja immediately stepped forward and pulled the bowstring, telling her partner to step back, and then thought that even if the monster was an elite, it was still a drank monster. If she hit it even once, she would kill it. Her aura was enveloped in dreams of magic, after which she released it, and seeing that it was flying along the correct trajectory, was glad that she succeeded. But suddenly the goblin covered himself with a club, and the arrow pierced it finger. Surprised from this blow, the goblin's legs slid back, and she thought, did he reflect the arrow? She was wrong. She needed to shoot with all her might. She pulled the arrow again, and when she wanted to release it, her body did not obey, and her fingers did not want to unclench the tip of the arrow. Her hands trembled, and she nervously thought why no, she needed to shoot. Hearing the loud step again, she turned her attention to the monster, and seeing him running towards them and swinging his club, she froze in fear, and then suddenly, MC grabbed her and threw her back, causing her to fall, and he stepped forward. After that, a loud sound was heard, and dust rose. The monster hit the ground with his club with all his might, and she, looking confusedly into the cloud of dust, called out to Junio. She remembered how she was in the dungeon and found herself in a similar situation. A girl from her team exclaimed, "What is she doing? Is all this a joke to her? She can't even shoot properly. And when she did, it was in her direction. She almost died because of her hoe. Is she going to compensate for that?" Ja asked her to wait, and said that even though she missed, she didn't mean to shoot her. The girl smirked and asked irritably, "Is she not asking for forgiveness, but looking for an excusados? She think that just because she's an A rank, the whole world is at her feet. She'll still show her who she's messed with." After they got out of the dungeon, and Ya came to the association, she was denied joining the team, and the other hunters started whispering, asking if she was the A rank loser. He heard that she almost killed someone in the dungeon, and also that she can't even kill a weak monster. Someone called him an idiot and said that's why even D rank teams refuse her. Another hunter asked what she was doing with her talent. What a waste. If Sha's like that, why is she still a hunter? Returning from her memories, she looked at the monster with a gloomy expression and thought that she should have given up on it all. Because of her, even Junio got hurt at that very moment. The goblin raised his club above his head, about to strike. But suddenly, a bright spark flew between them, and Junio said that he was bad at acting. After all, his sword easily blocked the elite monster's attack, and Jaya, noticing him, called out to him in surprise, and he said loudly that he knew it sounded meaningless, but let her listen to him carefully. If she calmed down and just did as he told her, then they would definitely be able to win. He frowned, unthought that he had prepared everything. In an emergency, she would be able to activate it without a problem. All that was left was to buy time. He continued swinging his sword, striking, and told her to look closely at this idiot. She will see something, let her shoot there with all her might. But Gaia was no longer listening to him. Her body trembled. Enge began to rise to her feet, wondering what this feeling was. Her senses seemed to have become more acute. She was very uncomfortable, but she could see everything. Her eyes lit up and she took out the arrow, again thinking that she could clearly see where to aim. She pulled the arrow and concentratedly closed her eyes, after which she opened them wide and thought that with this one arrow, everything would be over. She aimed and released Thero, which left a bright light in the air, and the goblin froze in place, hearing the whistling sound emitted by it. MC caught his breath at this time and thought that fortunately it seemed like everything had activated correctly. The conditions were very strict for some reason. At that very moment, the elite monster extended its club towards the arrow to protect itself from the blow, but it pierced it along with him, leaving a huge hole in his body. Seeing this, Junio thought with a smile that it was worth it, while Gia was surprised and confused. At the same time, after that, an explosion occurred. The monster's limb loss from the shot fell to the ground, and he himself began to lose his balance, after which he also fell. Ya caught her breath, and Junio said that she would feel unusual. She would have a feeling Asif. All her senses were intensifying, although the method was a little dangerous, but in order to awaken, she needed to awaken her senses. She asked in confusion, who was he? Why did she feel like he foresaw all of this? And what did he mean by awaken? He told her, with a smile, to take her time. They had a lot of time. She walked towards him and told him in an irritated tone not to change these objects and answer the question, but before she could finish speaking, she suddenly felt a strong pain and grabbed her head, and then passed out. MC had to carry her on his back to the exit, and he sighed heavily, saying that it was very difficult to make friends. But at least one issue was resolved. Right when they left the cave, she woke up, and the first thing she did was apologize to him, saying that she didn't know why she acted like that. It felt like it wasn't her at all. She can't believe that she showed such disrespect to the man who saved her twice. She's really sorry. Thatch suspected him, and she apologizes for suddenly passing out. He was confused by her apology, after which he tiredly touched his forehead and sighed, answering that everything was really fine. No one was hurt, and they defeated all the monsters, so let her pull herself together. Half an hour has passed already. She tearfully agreed, and he asked if she could give him the pendant. He clarified that he gave it to her before entering the cave, Remembering this, she put her hand in her pocket and then handed it to him. He looked at it carefully and thought that the color oft crystal had changed. She definitely used it. Meteorite perception is a rare item that can only be obtained in the A-ranked dungeon burning Harpy's Refuge. This item has an ability called Heightened Senses. It is automatically acted when the conditions are met. For example, when a person shoots an arrow at the head of the owner of this pendant, his senses will sharply sharpen, increasing the person's capabilities. And he can use superhuman senses. He returned the amuletto. Heron thought that the problem was in the difficult conditions the owner's emotions must be at their peak. For people like Hanaya, the best way to activate it is through intense fear, so he made her feel insanely scared. Although it seemed difficult, he managed to awaken her, even with such a high price. There are very few of these pendants on the market, and he gave up on this idea, but he thought that Tian would find it in days. Thanks to him, everything became easier, but this is just the beginning. Ja had just felt like she was awakened by the item. She needs more practice to reach her original level. His face became serious, and he told her to listen carefully. Her first task is to make sure that her concentration is solely focused on the monsters. In order to do this, she first needs to change her bow. She is strong enough that she can change the short bow to a long one, and shoot from afar. Notably, she will not have to fight monsters at close range, so she will be less afraid of them. He wanted to tell her something else, but she did not let him finish, and thanked him. He did not understand what she was grateful to him for, and she said that she was grateful to him for everything, including the pendant, when she thought she was going to die. There she felt something from it, like everything around her froze, like she could do anything. She saw where Shua's aiming the target was right at the monster. To be honest, even though she is an A rank in terms of character and of everything else, she is no higher than a D. And in trying to change this, her disappointment only grew. But she had this feeling that during this short time of their acquaintance, she had grown a lot. She felt that she was also capable, that she could do anything, and for the first time she got carried away by this, realizing that she had talked to him. Much became worried, and he said with a smile that it would not be easy for her alone. He would give her his number, so let her call if she needed it. She was very happy and thanked him, after which she said that she would also leave him her number. When Junio was about to give her his number, he noticed a message from Tien telling him to call him quickly. There was an emergency. He decided that he would contact him when he got out of the dungeon, after which some time passed. As soon as he and Ja got out of the dungeon, he called Tien, and he thanked him, saying that he would call him back. After the meeting, Junio said with a smile that he would help him if he could. Last time he gave him a very useful thing. He replied that it was good, that it was useful to him. He was glad that he agreed to help him. After that, he ended the call and put the phone in his pocket, looking out the window, and then there was a knock on the door. Who entered the office and said that the association president was back. They could leave after that. The two of them arrived at the association building and walked forward along the corridor. But Hu felt uneasy. She said that the situation was so unusual. Usually he sends an official document. Who would have thought that the association Preston would call him? He was sending rather difficult orders through the document, but if he summoned him personally, then perhaps the S-Rang gate had appeared again. Tian replied that it was okay. Junio agreed to help him. If he fought like before, there would be no danger after that, he thought, with a satisfied grin that he was right to build a working relationship with Junio. Hisu, meanwhile, worriedly thought that he seemed to be in a better mood than after the Arachne dungeon. It was probably all because of this creator. He had been acting strange since then. In limited support, who would have thought that the guildmaster would make such a surprising offer? She knew that berserkers had a hard time controlling their emotions, but the guildmaster was calculating and sensible. Is this Junio more capable? And she thought. She immediately discarded the thought, and thought that a D rank couldn't create a weapon that he would like. He invites him quite rarely, so she needs to find out everything in person. Tian noticed her suspicious gaze on him, and then they walked up to the door of the president's office, and the guard outside greeted him, asking if he was alone. Tian was slightly surprised by this question, and asked if someone else was supposed to come. He replied that, from what he heard, the guild leaders were supposed to come if they were alone. He could wait. Tian asked if he could find out who the other leader was. The man noticed someone behind him, and then pointed forward with a smile, and said that he had arrived. Yak, the Shinoa guild leader, appeared behind them, and upon noticing Tian called out to him in surprise. Upon hearing his voice, he and his secretary immediately teletort around, and Yak waved at him, and said that he heard that he had been very busy lately. Tian remained silent, and frowned, thinking that this was the only person who irritated the guild leader. Yu faked a smile, and said that he didn't expect to see him.